And you are live.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Call the December 14th, 2023 meeting of the Financial Advisory Commission to order. It's now 8:02 a.m. And welcome everybody. And just in case I forget at the end of the meeting, wish everybody a happy, healthy, and safe holiday season. We don't have a long agenda today, but it's been since I think September since we met, and I felt even though it's not a big agenda, I wanted to get everybody together so we don't forget who we are and what we're doing here. Just for the record, I'm Fred Sussman, Chair. We have Commissioners Ed Meehan, Jim Cardillo, Perry Hepworth, and Patrick Bannon. Frank Brown may or may not be here. He has personal commitments that he's dealing with, and he said he'd try and get here when he finished that. Also, we have from city staff, Vicki Buckland, Assistant City Manager, Jody Dickinson, Finance Director, Joel Braithwaite, Assistant City Attorney, Alderman Ross Arnett, and Kim Morozky from Finance Department. I think that is everybody that I see on the screen. So welcome everybody. I sent out an agenda, and Kim, thanks for picking up the date error in the one that I attached to the original email notice. I don't know why that's the one that was attached, because when I printed it out, I printed out the correct one before I even received your revision. So anyway, it doesn't matter. You all have the agenda. Commission members, any questions, revision to the agenda? If not, entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Motion made by, do I see a hand? Perry Hepworth, second by
Second.
Jim Cardillo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Raising your right hand. Opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda is approved. We have two sets of minutes to approve. One, the special meeting of May 8th and the regular meeting of September 14th. They've been out there for a little while. Anybody have any comments, questions, revisions for those two sets of minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the May 8th and September 14th Financial Advisory Commission meeting. Motion made by Perry Hepworth, seconded by, don't all jump in at once, Ed Meehan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes, those two sets of minutes are approved. Let's see what we have in terms of reports. Jody, anything or what? I shouldn't say anything because you always have something. What do you have for us today from the Finance Department?
Yes, hello, I'm Jody Dickinson, Finance Director. I'll start by telling you this would be the time of year where we would normally be issuing bonds, but we have some proceeds remaining from our previous bond issues, so we won't be issuing any more debt until next fall. So that's a task we don't have to get through this time of year. We're working on finishing the annual comprehensive financial report. My assistant director, Julie Donnelly, is working very hard on that. We are on the final processes of pulling the statements together. We have the whole book to pull together as well. We're always hoping to get it out by the end of December. I think it's going to be maybe mid-January, end of January this year, which would be ahead of the last couple of years. So it is a little bit of an improvement. We're working on the budget process for FY25. I have the budget team is working very hard on that. We're starting our meetings with departments on getting them trained for the budget process and getting the information into the system. We've sent out instructions and we've started a set of planning meetings. So that's moving forward. we've started union negotiations, so we've had meetings with the various groups there and starting our initial discussions. Been working with Vicky on a couple policies. We're trying to get our policies updated. Some of them long overdue, and we're finishing. We finished off one, and I got a travel policy revision coming out. And on the staffing side, always an issue. I have a staff member that's moving and is vacating what would be the accounting manager position. So I've listed an accounting manager position, the new position for senior accountant that I've had for a year that I'm now filling. We have a vacant cashier because our cashier moved over to the buyer position because our buyer, Valessa, she has retired. And we still have a vacant senior buyer. We've been trying to fill that for quite a while, and we've just now hired a temp to sit in there, somebody with some procurement experience from another jurisdiction. So hoping that works out and maybe we have a solution for that position. So again, always rolling, always turning over employees and trying to get fully staffed. It's a challenge. And that's all I have to report. Vicky, I don't know if you can think of anything else that we're working on that the group would want to know.
Just a lot of irons in the fire right now.
Mm.
Yeah.
What was that, Vicky?
There are just a lot of irons in the fire right now, a sort of activity on sort of all fronts.
And I'm sure you're moving, keep those fires stoked.
Yeah, we're trying.
I know. Jody, do you anticipate any year-end hiccups that we should be aware of?
For which year? The 24? The fiscal year 24, or the financial statements are covering last fiscal year. That we've drafted the statements. We have a good set of statements, and those numbers were very good. I mean, the revenues were very close to what we had budgeted, but we have some savings on the expenditure side again. So that's a little bit better than what we had predicted. And we've kind of pulled those numbers together. I'm working on, for union negotiations and budget, working on the projections for this year. Initially, the revenues are strong. I think we'll be a little bit ahead on revenues, but not much. And then on the expense side, we're not done with that. We're trying to work out some glitches in our reporting system. So we'll have those soon, hopefully, and be able to give you an update on where we think we're going to end up at the end of 24.
Okay, great. Commission members, any questions for Jody on her report? No? Okay. The city manager is not here. Vicky, do you have anything to report from the city manager's office?
Yeah, a couple of things. Related to the National Community Survey, and then the retreat coming up.
Okay, can you hold those both to new business?
Yep, I will do that.
Aside from those two items, do you have anything else from the city manager's office?
No, we've just been working closely with Jody on several of those things that she already mentioned. So
Okay.
Trying to be helpful in that space.
I'm sure you are. Jim, anything new? No, I shouldn't have anything new. What's going on with the audit committee, Jim?
Thank you, Fred. There are two action items in front of the audit committee right now. One of which is a report from city management on an inquiry that was placed through the waste, fraud, and abuse hotline that the city maintains. So that's an ongoing issue the audit committee is just has oversight on. The process is that if an inquiry comes in, city management disposes of it, and the audit committee determines if their disposition was adequate. Secondly, there is an external commission that receives funding from the city, and we had requested some information on how this external commission manages those funds. So, Art and Public Places Commission. So that's an action item right now in front of the audit committee. Personally, on the audit committee, I am working with the Office of the Mayor for new ways to increase participation on the audit committee. There are still 2 open vacancies. And also personally, I'm still seeking a designee from the FAC for the audit committee for 2024. Sorry, I kind of feel like I'm tilting windmills on that one, but no, happy to continue to serve on both.
All right, Jim, thanks. Appreciate the report, and you truly appreciate your service on that audit committee. Anybody have any questions or comments for Jim on his report or about the audit committee? Okay, and I hope you all take to heart, Jim's plea to find somebody to relieve him for 2024 on the audit committee. But he's been gracious enough, as he said, for 2023. If nobody is willing to step up, then he'll continue on and do the great job he's been doing. So thank you very much for both of you, Jim.
Thank you, Fred. I just I'm grateful for your leadership on the FAC, and I will continue under your leadership.
Next, don't have anything for unfinished business. We have had for months spending affordability. I dropped it off because I didn't want to have a no report this month. Ed Meehan and I have agreed that he and I will talk about this a little bit and see if we can come up with a recommended game plan forward and discuss it at the January meeting. At least we'll see where we are. So you can probably expect to see spending affordability back on the agenda for January. New business. Okay, Vicki, your turn. There are 2 things here. One is the community survey that you've been working on, and let's deal with that one first. What is it? Who does it? What are the implications of it? What relationship does it have, with the FAC and what we do and what we look at, et cetera, et cetera. The floor is all yours, ma'am.
Yeah. So, so
Don't be so excited.
So the National Community Survey has been around for a fair while. At this point, it's administered by a company called Polko, but it actually predates them. There are about 500 communities across the U.S. that use the National Community Survey every year. There are a list of standard questions that are really around various aspects of quality of life in the community, both in terms of how residents view the services that are offered and how essential and important they view those services to be. So you end up getting just general results, and then they will also benchmark you against similar jurisdictions across the country. So you sort of get a look both at what's important to your citizens, how they view your services, as well as then how do you sort of stack up against similar communities. So just Tuesday, I got my first look at the top line numbers. I don't have the full report just yet. There are a couple of more detailed crosstabs parts, but I did get my first look at the overall results. Generally speaking, jurisdictions use a tool like this as part of their planning, both to inform strategic planning, as well as then as an input to general performance management, budget processes, to give them a sense of whether the city's delivering on what the citizens are expecting. So in this particular case, so POCO, generally speaking, the National Community Survey divides the survey into different subject matter areas, parks and rec, natural environment, public safety, economy, mobility, community design. There are a few others. Overall, the city got good marks, right, from citizens. The final report will be publicly available. It is not yet. So there's limits to how detailed I'm going to get because I literally just got it. Overall, good marks from folks. The thing that stood out the most, where the city was like the most positively deviant from benchmark communities, was what our citizens think of us as a place to visit. Which means that we have a lot of citizens who encourage others, who think this is a great place to come, more than most people across the country think of their own communities. So I think that's a really, really positive thing for the city. The other thing that stood out to me just on first blush is that the lower parts are like parking's not a surprise, right? We know some of that stuff, it showed up in the survey. Parking, right? But interestingly enough, some things like bicycle infrastructure showed up as well. However, we also have more citizens that actually use that compared to benchmark jurisdictions. So it feels to me like a really good problem for the city to have. We have citizens who really use the infrastructure we have and who therefore then also are interested in having good quality infrastructure. So some of the recent stuff that the alderpersons and the city mayor and city management learned on that recent trip to the Netherlands, I think is well timed in some respects, given that. So at any rate, the National Community Survey, the details of that is something that will end up being shared, obviously, with department directors, with the mayor, council, and will be available online publicly. So as soon as that's posted, we will let you guys know so that you can download and look at the details inside of that report. Overall, I think a very positive picture for the city. There are some areas where we clearly need to spend some time, which is not, that's true of every community, and that's true of Annapolis as well. It's well timed because we do have scheduled the strategic planning retreat with the council that is scheduled for the 5th and 6th of January. So the council will have this as an input to that process, which will be really, again, well timed because it's very fresh. One thing that the city purchased from Polco is the ability to do follow-on surveys. They actually have a platform for doing community surveying to reach back out to people who answered the survey, and invite others to as well. And so one of the things that we'll need to follow up on here is, where do we want to dive deeper? So I have this top line number. Let's drill into that a little bit and see what potentially what's some additional information we may want to know about that particular topic. So it's both using the information that we have and figuring out what additional information we might want to collect. At any rate, I'm a nerd for this sort of thing, so I'm super excited about it, and very much looking forward to being able to digest the full report, finish digesting the top line numbers that we got here, and then sharing that with everyone.
Thank you, Vicki. Let me ask you a question. I'm listening to your presentation. It sounds very interesting in terms of process and what you get out of it. But is there anything direct that the FAC can get out of it or can use in its work?
So yes. From my perspective, I would answer that as yes. Mostly from two perspectives. There are some things in here that will feed their way into actual performance measures for some of the departments. And the second thing then is part of what the FAC's mission is to sort of that view of of affordability, to what extent do we need to invest in certain areas? And so one of the things that the survey tells us is, from the broad resident perspective, where do we have gaps between what residents are really looking for and what they think the city currently has? And so I think from an affordability perspective, I think it helps to guide to guide and gauge that need for investment, and where do we do that? So as you go into crafting kind of a view and a recommendation regarding where and to what extent the city might want to extend itself, this may color where and how you think about that.
Okay, thank you very much on that explanation, Vicki. Questions, comments about that community survey for Vicki? Jim Cardillo.
Thank you, Fred. Vicki, thanks very much. A question on the community survey. How many cities participate, and so what's the population? And then when they talk about cities or those in our peer group, how many are in that peer group and how many are in the total population?
So there are 500 communities across about 500 that participate in the survey, and I do have a list of the communities, and I don't remember exactly how many off the top of my head. I think there's around 30 who end up sort of being considered peers. I would need to get back to you with that exact number, but I think it's around 30.
Ballpark is fine. Thank you, Vicki.
Yeah.
Ballpark was fine. I'm just curious as to, how many respondents they have and how many are categorized as our peers. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I will say, though, one thing to keep in mind in terms of the benchmarking, the set of communities who participate in the National Community Survey that's not a representative sample of all communities across the country. Generally speaking, communities who participate in the National Community Survey sort of have themselves together enough to be interested and have enough means. Not that the survey is expensive, but they have enough going for them in some ways to participate. So the sample is biased in some sense toward functional, well-run communities, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Perry?
Yeah, Vicki, thank you for the information. And I'm just kind of curious, you said, I think, a third party administers the survey. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then how did they, I imagine that's done through email, or is it by actual mail? And what's our participation numbers look like?
Yeah.
And how does the city, what involvement does the city have? You said like a well-run city more actively. Is there a way that they promote that survey?
So they actually don't do the promotion. That's actually part of what the city contributed to that. So the survey gets administered in two pieces. There's a scientific sample that is done by the company. The city provided them with like GIS maps of the city, how it's divided into wards. And then they used information from the American Community Survey from the Census Bureau to look at what the demographic distribution is. And between all of those things, they pulled a sample of 3,000 households across the city. Those households received 2 pieces of mail. First was just a postcard saying, you know, you got selected, you know, you were in the random sample for the survey. You can answer it online, and we had a QR code, you know, a link to go to the survey. That was followed up about a week later with an actual paper copy of the survey. Survey was offered in both English and Spanish online. The paper copy that was mailed was in English, but had instructions then for how to access it in Spanish. They take all of those results, and then they will weight that, as surveyors do, to resemble then what the actual distribution across the city is, both geographically and demographically. So that's the first part of the survey. The second part of the survey then is an open survey where anybody can participate. Those results get published separately. They're both included in the report. Generally speaking, the city did really well. That we had done, you know, flyers, postcards, yard signs. Our alderpersons were really great at getting the word out and handing out postcards to folks. You know, we had them available at all of the city desks and that kind of stuff. We, generally speaking, had a really great showing for a community that hasn't done this for a little while. The response rate, we got about 500 responses back from the sampled portion, which is actually a pretty high response rate for a survey like this. The goal, Polko's goal for any survey like this is about a 5% margin of error. We had enough response. Our margin of error is actually tighter than that. So we exceeded the response rate goal, which I was really, really happy about. Did that help? And did I feel like I blathered on him for a minute there. Did I actually answer your question?
Yeah, no, you did. I think so. Yeah, I think to get to a margin of error of like 3%, it's got to be like 1,000 respondents, but with 500, that's pretty good out of 3,000, I imagine. And then, so they don't combine the two, the open survey results with the surveyed population to paint one picture.
You can see that, you can see it that way, but the final report has them separate.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, any more comments or questions for Vicki on the community survey? If not, Vicki, thank you very much on that. And if you could just tell us a little bit about what the leadership retreat is coming up pretty soon. And
it looks like Patrick had his hand up.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
I was wondering what were some of the results of the survey? Could you give us a summary?
Yeah, well, since I just got the top line numbers, and it actually has not been shared. So, for example, Alderman Arnett here has not seen it yet. So I'm being a little bit circumspect, but some of the things that we would expect to see, where there's a gap between what people want versus what they think the city offers, some of those gaps are not going to surprise anybody, right? There's a gap for mobility, both in terms of parking as well as wanting more like biking infrastructure and things like that. There's a gap in the public safety stuff, right? That stuff's not surprising. But there's some real strengths that came out of that as well, that showed up, like, you know, a lot of people think it's a great place to visit. Generally speaking, really high marks for how we deal with the natural environment, high marks for parks and stuff like that. People have concerns about affordable housing, right? That showed up. Not the fact that it showed up in some sense, not as surprising. I think part of what the community survey allows us to do is gauge how much that shows up rather than just anecdote. Here's something that's a little bit broader across the community where you can gauge what's the actual gap that people see.
Okay. Further questions, Patrick?
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else before we move on to the retreat?
Yeah, so the leadership retreat is coming up. It's scheduled for January 5th and 6th. There are some final details that are still being nailed down, but the dates and then the person who had facilitated the earlier retreat, which is actually before I came on, but she's actually coming back. And I think that was a very, from everything I've heard, that was a really positive experience. And so I think I see Alderman Arnett nodding his head. So I think everyone's really, really happy that she's coming back. And I think that bodes well for building on that prior conversation because she was there for it. And of course, we'll have by that point, we'll have the full results from the survey. All the work Jody's doing will be that much further down the road. So we'll have some I think really good inputs into that to feed into that conversation.
Who is facilitating the retreat and who are the attendees?
The attendees are the council members and the department directors. So it's basic kind of the leadership writ large. And the person who's facilitating it, oh, I'm blanking on her name.
City resident?
It's not a city resident. So the ICMA, the International City County Managers Association, there's some folks who
That's fine. Yeah.
sort of specialize in some ways in working with jurisdictions.
Yeah.
And this particular person has been used by a number of different jurisdictions, I think very successfully. So she came highly recommended. And Julie is her name, I believe. And Novak? Anyway, I should know that cold, and I don't. So my
Thanks, Vicki.
Pardon, somebody, what was that last comment? No. Okay, any other questions or comments for Vicki on the retreat? And I hope we'll have a follow-up discussion about this, a presentation at our January meeting. So, okay, I see city attorney has joined us, Mike Wiles. Good morning. Apologies for not having you on the distribution list. My error, I had thought that you had assigned Joel to be council advising this group. So I thought that was, well, I'll put you on for the next one.
Yeah, I'm Joel's backup, and I like to pop in from time to time just to see how everything's going.
No problem. Everything's going fine.
Thanks so much.
Fine. I see Frank Brown has joined us. Hi, Frank. Good morning. We're at item 6C, 2024 meeting dates. I sent out a list of the proposed 2024 meeting dates. Same setup, second Thursday of the month, 8 a.m. Virtually by Zoom. And you have the list of the proposed dates. No meeting scheduled for August. If there's need, we can always call a special meeting, but there's no regular meeting scheduled for August. Any questions, comments about the meeting schedule? If not, yes, Jim.
Thank you, Fred. Around the April-May timeframe, there are usually one or two additional meetings required in preparation for the budget. I'm not looking to actually book those dates, but is there an expectation as to the number, frequency, and rough time frame?
I haven't thought about it, but just thinking back right now, over past years, we've usually had, I think, 2 special meetings.
Yeah.
And depending on the budget cycle and where that is, depends on, or has a bearing upon when we need to meet. So that's all I can tell you.
Okay, thanks. I
think-
understand that the budget process at this point is pretty standard as to the dates and requirements. If you start with the last city council meeting in June that it needs to be approved by and work backwards, the fax involvement is pretty much known within a 1 or 2 week span. I'm expecting.
I would expect, and everybody should expect probably 2 special meetings during that April-May timeframe.
So thank you. If I could ask at some point that we were informed of those rough dates sometime in early 24.
Okay. Alderman Arnett.
So there's a resolution before the council that has all of the meeting dates for when the mayor delivers the budget to the council and then the council activities. And so I can send it to Fred, or maybe Vicky, you could send it to the committee, but that lays out all the dates as far as Jody's work.
Okay, Jody.
Thank
And
you.
I'll be happy to distribute the budget instructions that included a calendar of the dates and including those meeting dates where we intend to present for both the Finance Committee and the FAC. One of them is when we start going over when we do our first introduction of the budget and go over it in a broad perspective. So
That would be
that
great,
will be-
Jody. And
yeah.
if you can, you and your team, city team, kind of think down the line, think approximately when we may need to get the facts together for special meetings, so we can at least, as a group, be thinking about that and put it generally in our calendars. That would be helpful. So thank you very much for that offer.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else on meeting dates? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2024 FAC meeting dates for regular meetings as presented.
So moved.
Made by Jim Cardillo, seconded by Ed Meehan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, the meeting dates for 2024 for regular meetings of the FAC is approved. Every year, the FAC and other boards and commissions of the city have to prepare annual reports in a format prescribed by the city. For the last few years, Kim has been very, very helpful in pulling together a draft of that report for us to review. Last week, I think, she sent me a draft, which I looked over and have not sent to you because it's not ready for distribution yet. I told her, let's wait until after this meeting so that she can include the attendance and any results of action taken, et cetera, at this meeting in the report. So we will need to approve the report at our January meeting. So Kim, I'm going to ask you to finalize the report based upon the results of today's meeting, and then send it to me for one final review before I send it out to the commission.
Affirmative.
Kim?
Affirmative.
Great. Any questions on the upcoming 2024 annual report? No, thank you. And PAC officers, each year at the beginning of the year, the PAC elects its chair and vice chair, for the upcoming year. We'll need to do that at the January meeting. Right, I've been chair for a number of years. If somebody else would like to take that over, feel free to let me know. We do have a vacancy in the office of vice chair. That was filled by Bob Burden, who left several months ago when he moved out of state. So that hopefully somebody will step up to offer to take the position of vice chair. And that will take place at our January meeting. So any questions about officers? Seeing none, next meeting, regular meeting will be January 11th, 2024, 8 a.m. by Zoom. And we'll get the materials out ahead of time. Oh, I should mention that a couple of days ago, received from Alderman Schandelmeyer the results of the land use or land value study that the city had commissioned and that we discussed last year. And we're just waiting the results of that study. Well, the study apparently has been completed. I will distribute those materials prior to the January meeting for your review. I will give him the opportunity to come to our meeting if you'd like to do so. Otherwise, we'll have the materials in the report. Anything else for the good of the order? No? Well, again, everybody happy, healthy, safe holiday season, and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Jim Cardillo, seconded by Perry Hepworth. Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye or raise.
Aye.